Hey, everybody, and welcome to your next. I'm your host, Jerome, and you're in for a solo episode this week. Now, as I was thinking about, man, what should I talk about today out of all of the things that are out there? And this episode is going to be called You Think You Have Time Until You Don't. The exit planning myth that's costing founders everything. Now, why am I interested in this topic? Recently, I've had conversations with multiple founders who have an 8-figure exits, and they think that it's best for them to wait to have the conversation about their next until after they exit. Now, you may be saying, yeah, that's sequential, that's logical, Jerome. But I find that the founder's exit paradox is deeper, is darker, and it's harder to come back from whenever people wait until after they exit to start exploring what's their next. What if I told you the biggest lie founders tell themselves is, I'll figure it out when the time comes? The problem is, by the time you realize you need an answer, you're already out of time. Now, I'm not here to peddle doom and gloom, but I am here to make you aware of the risk that you have when you say, I'm going to deal with it later. That's a trap. You'll always find something else to do. You will find things that are urgent, even if they aren't more important, to fill the space, and that will eventually prevent you from getting what you actually desire. So let's talk about some of the excuses that we use in order to postpone doing the very necessary work of finding your next. The first one, I'm too busy running my business to focus on this now. It's really difficult when you're in the exit process, when you're going through deals and due diligence, to get to a place where you can take a breath and focus on yourself. I don't actually mean that, but that's what people believe. I believe it's probably one of the more important times for you to focus on yourself. See, here's the thing. People get cold feet when they're exiting from instead of exiting to. That's why at Exiting Excellence, we want people to have their next lined up so that they are sprinting towards their legacy and leaving the business operator persona behind. Now, this busyness is something that allows us to say we don't have time for something. The reality is time is the most precious resource, and the way that we choose to allocate it is going to have the biggest impact on our future experience. So for those of us who say, well, I don't have time for it, I think you're actually saying, I'm choosing not to focus on this right now. And you're like, no, physically, I just don't have enough time. I've got to go be a dad or a mom. I've got to work on the business. I got to do whatever my community service activities are. And my response to that is, are all of those things more important than you? Because there's going to come a point when those things are not going to be happening, specifically the business. And when the business isn't happening, you're going to be sitting there by yourself in what we consider to be quicksand, trying to figure out how to get out of the mess that's been created. The next one that we hear folks say is, I don't know what I want to do next, so I'll figure it out later. And then they go on a trip and they were wandering around in Europe or sailing around the Caribbean, thinking that something is magically going to fall into their lap or be downloaded into their brain as the thing that they should be working on in this next phase of their life. I'm here to tell you, I don't know anybody that that's actually happened for. And it sounds good. It sounds cool. And I think the cool factor is the thing that has people saying this more than anything else. Like, oh, yeah, I got Starlink and I'll be on a boat and we can do this and we can do that. I think it's just pushing it away so that you don't have to deal with it because it's scary. And it's okay for it to be scary. It's okay for it to be uncomfortable. It's okay for you not to be excited about thinking about change. In fact, that's natural. And it's why we started having this conversation about the exit paradox and the things you experience when you're transitioning from being an operator to being a legacy builder. I personally believe that when you put stuff like this off, you're actually delaying you accomplishing the mission that you've been placed on the planet to do. And while I was giving a presentation today, I gave the example of getting to the creator, assuming that you believe in some type of higher power, and the creator asking you, after you run through your list of the things that you did with the non-refundable resource you have, time, saying that's the best you could come up with. That's the best you could come up with on how to use such a precious resource. Like, how sinking would that feel for you? And then, if you really want to add insult to injury, imagine them then showing you who you were supposed to impact and how you were supposed to help them, and the things that didn't happen as a result of you not doing what you were supposed to do. And then imagine that those are actually the dreams and the hopes that are placed in us. And we're not quite sure why we have them, but we know that we're supposed to do them. And so we get shipped back to the planet to try to do this thing all over again and actually be worthy of the well done, my good and faithful servant. The other excuse that comes up is I love what I do. I'm not ready to leave yet. And that one is so interesting. It's so interesting because so many founders stay in the company for far too long. And in staying in the company for far too long, they end up missing the window. Every business has an optimal window where the founder should take a step out of the business, pull some chips off the table, and maybe they want to keep working for the acquirer. Maybe they want to consult back. Maybe they want to be involved in some way. But being able to take money off the table, because more often than not, 80% of a business owner's wealth is wrapped up in a business. And if you don't have the liquidity event, it's likely that you won't be able to be work optional in the way that you desire to be. And it will also impact the way that you're able to use your proceeds for a lasting legacy or how you transition wealth to the next generation if you consider yourself to be a wealth creator. So I think you get rid of those three excuses. I'm too busy running the business. I don't know what I want to do next, so I'll wait until I figure it out. And I love what I do. I'm not ready to leave yet. And put them away and actually take a step into, hey, here's what I want to do next, and here's how I'm going to do it. You may find that you don't actually love what you're doing right now. You may find that there's a higher calling for you and your talents and your resources, specifically your money. So, unfortunately, there are instances where founders realize that they're out of time. And this is when they hit one of the four unexpected reasons for exiting. Now, these four reasons are burnout, death, divorce, and disease. Now, I don't wish any of these things on anybody, but every day, somebody who's a business owner is impacted by one of these three things. Now, the burnout one isn't something that could sneak up on you and catch you unexpectedly. People know when they've been burning the candle on both ends. They know when they've been pushing and fighting and nearing the end of what they believe their capacity to be. So we'll just put that one to the side. But I've noticed more and more founders are coming to us and saying they're burnt out and they need a break and they just want out of their company. It probably means that they're running their company wrong. It probably means that they don't have the right resources on the team. It probably means that they're doing tasks that are below what they would pay somebody else their hourly rate to do. And when you're doing those things, you're creating a self-inflicted wound. So we'll put burnout to the side and then we'll go to death and divorce. No, we'll do death and disease. So death and disease, you never know when that's going to happen. But the reality of it is if your business is relying on you, right, the more valuable you are to the business, the less valuable your business is. And you pass away, it's likely that your business, unless you've got a key employee who's ready to take it over, it's likely that your business is going to close. And so if you spent 5, 10, 15, 30 years building a thing and then you pass away before you sell it, nobody who you took time away from is going to be able to benefit from all of that work that you did. Think about that. You spent all of this time building the thing, and you don't even have the ability to harvest capital from the resource that you or from the asset that you've put the most resources into. That's a shame. It's my belief that every founder deserves a liquidity event, especially when they've built something of significant value. And I think we do ourselves a disservice when we work and work and work and continue to push out that date for when we're actually going to make that harvest. We're actually going to have the liquidity event. And the fact of the matter is, there's really only three ways out of a business anyway. And so you're either going to sell it, you're going to close it, or you're going to give it to somebody else. My thought is for those who want to give it to somebody else, why don't you sell it to those folks so that they have some skin in the game? At the end of the day, we absolutely want to harvest from the fields that we've been sowing in. So we talked about death because that one's unexpected. Disease. Somebody can get a cancer diagnosis. Recently, a friend's wife had a stroke. Fortunately, she's in really good shape considering everything that could have gone wrong. But the fact of the matter is, it can happen at any given moment. And so, if we're not ready for the exit, if we're not ready for the next, we can end up in a space where we're being forced to close the business or somebody else is being forced to close the business for us. What a great treat. What a great treat to leave a mess for somebody else to clean up. When we were in Sri Lanka talking to the EO group there, they labeled folks that do that irresponsible. And I know none of the listeners of your next podcast are irresponsible. So that leaves the last one, which is divorce. And it's probably my least favorite one. But the fact of the matter is 50% of marriages, first marriages fell, even higher percentage of second marriages fell, and even a higher percentage of third marriages fell. So with that empowering thought, we got to know that this is actually a real risk to you, the business, and the wealth that you've created. So, if you didn't sign a prenup, which most people didn't, if you didn't spend the time setting it up so that getting a divorce didn't mean that you had to give up your business, which most people didn't, then you got to know that if you're spending 60 or 80 hours a week in your business and you're neglecting the folk at home, that it's likely that you're going to have a situation that you have to deal with. And I'm not encouraging you to let your business fall by the wayside. Although some people would say if you can't get it done in 5, you can't get it done in 7. What I am saying is you want to actually spend the time to repair and nurture that relationship. And for a lot of folks, it's their closest confidant. At some point, it was their best friend. And so if you're neglecting that, if that relationship isn't mutually beneficial, you probably should take a step back and check the priorities so that you don't end up losing both of the things that are closest to you and have the deepest impact on your identity. Now, I think those four things, again, burnout, death, divorce, and disease, are reason enough to take action on making sure that your business is exit ready. And so we created the exit readiness assessment. It's available on our website. So you just hit exit2excellence.com/ERA. It'll pull up the assessment. And in about 10 or 15 minutes, you can go through, answer the questions, and see exactly where you are. Now, I know most folk are like, yeah, right. No, this is really good. And it's going to ask you questions that most people who haven't gone through and created an exit plan haven't asked, haven't considered. And we want to raise your awareness about that because we want you to be able to exit to excellence. Now, I would be remiss if I wrapped up and didn't say this. The fact of the matter is, it's never too early to start. If you knew you only had 6 months before you had to exit, what would you do differently today? If you knew you had 6 months before you had to exit, what would you do differently today? Is there a hire that you need to make? Is there an investment in technology or process documentation that you need to make? Whatever that thing is, whatever that bottleneck is, we need to get that done. And then whatever comes after that, we need to get that done. But hop over and get our exit readiness assessment in case you don't know what you should be doing differently. And we will help you on your journey to exiting to excellence. Again, this is a solo episode. We're going to keep this one nice and tight and quick. Thank you so much to the listeners. Your dreams should be real. We'll catch you on the next episode.